Yeah, it's weird, right? Because it's not the same set of skills. And
No.
in fact, one could argue it's two diametrically opposed sets of skills. No one becomes a writer, because they enjoy other people's company.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Conversation with your host Nadine Matheson. As always, I hope that you're well and I hope that you're having a good week and I hope that you're getting ready for summer because yes, we are in June. I'm not sure how we got here, but we are here. The weeks, the days, the months have just been flying past and we find ourselves looking at, the eve of summer. And I, for one, cannot wait because it's been busy. It's been really busy with writing books, doing events, and it's nice just to take a moment, sit in the sun and smell the roses, and also listen to podcasts, which is why I have a request. If you've enjoyed previous episodes of The Conversation, if you just love listening to The Conversation, could you please leave a review? The reviews, the comments, the likes, it really does help keep the podcast going, and I would be really, really grateful. That's all I've got to say about that. And I'm going to get straight on with the show because this week I'm in conversation with Michael Idov, who's an author, director and screenwriter, and his new book, The Collaborators, which is a spy thriller and was also a Times Book of the Month, is out now. And in today's conversation, Michael Idov and I talk about the real life events that inspire fictional thrills, what rejection looks like in the film industry in comparison to the publishing industry, and what it means to transition from a writer to an author. Now, as always, sit back or go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Michael Idov, welcome to The Conversation.
Thank you so much, Nadine. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Right. I don't normally get very political on the podcast because I know what I'm like. I get carried away. But I just thought...
Going right in there, huh?
I'm going right in there with
yeah,
you.
let's do it.
Okay, so obviously, I'm looking at everything that's going on politically in the States, and then I'm looking at your book, The Collaborators, and I'm thinking, it's because of everything that's happening. Has it made you approach your writing or even look back at your book, The Collaborators, differently?
Well, yes, for sure. And you may notice that The Collaborators is set in 2021. And the reason for that is it was written largely in 2023. And back then I felt like the Ukraine war was still something I couldn't quite wrap my head around in terms of making it into a literary fodder because, I have friends in Ukraine and, it's been absolutely devastating to keep hearing the news from there. And I had been doing quite a bit of work with Russia before that and have completely extricated myself from any projects that involved Russia once the full-scale invasion started. So it didn't feel right to address it in a fun genre setting, So I had to set the book in what I felt were the last moments of the previous status quo, right? Like the sort of the summer of 2021, where you can already see that something's about to happen, but the old kind of structure of the Russia-US relationship still kind of applied. And, COVID was still wreaking havoc on the world, but at least that was more understandable than whatever the hell was going on, at the time. And the funny thing is, of course, now I feel like that about 2024, where my second book is set, and I just finished a draft of a book called Cormorant Hunt, which is the book 2 of the same series. And it's really kind of tragicomic that I now had to set it in 2024 because then now I feel like, well, 2024 I understand. I don't understand at all.
It's crazy because, we're always told to write what you know. And I suppose because, when you're writing a collaborator, because I was reading about it, and in a sense, it's kind of what you know, but you are still creating this world and this, I suppose, this alternative reality, things that haven't, you don't expect to happen. But then you look at the current state of everything around you and you're thinking, you wouldn't put this in a book, really, previously.
Right. Oh, there are things happening in reality that would be too cheesy to put into a spy. I mean that's the reality has been outpacing genre for a while now. If you look at what the Ukrainians did to sabotage the Northern Stream, with a special op on a yacht, or the exploding pagers, or
I forgot about that.
Remember the exploding pagers?
Yeah.
Thousands of pagers, without assigning any, humanist value to that operation, that is something from a movie, and not even a good movie. So yeah, it is hard, and in many ways, the Collaborators was me writing about what I know, though I am a civilian. That needs to be, set up front. I'm not an intelligence.
You're not a spy.
I'm not a spy, although I know it's proving a negative because, that's what a spy would say. But obviously I am not. But and I'm sure there's a lot of errors in the way I describe, the CIA bureaucracy, because that is the part of the book where I'm frankly just basing it on research and talking to friends of friends in the community. And this is when I'm flying blind a little bit. But I think my strong side is that I've lived in all these countries and I know all these cultures. And so basically, whatever happens in Collaborators, I know exactly on what street corner it happened.
Yeah.
Whether it be in Latvia, Morocco, Berlin, or Thailand, these are all places that I know. And I've leaned into that because you have to, as you said, write what you know. And that was sort of, I know the cultures and underlying geopolitics, and I feel more sort of confident writing about that than I do about what's happening on the 7th floor of the the new headquarters building in Langley, which I'm sure a lot of veteran intelligence operatives are brilliant at.
I just completely forgot about the exploding pages. That's still in my head. And now I can see in my head, I can see it they're in the grocery store and and the pages were exploding in their pockets. And you said that would be a really bad movie.
Well, I mean, a lot of stuff in the Collaborators has happened in real life. And that was one of my sort of approaches to the action sequences where, this is not much of a spoiler because it's the scene that opens the book, the first scene of the book, where an airplane gets taken down over Belarus so that one person can be yanked, off the plane and the rest are let go. That happened in 2021. It's the so-called Ryanair incident, and people can look it up. Your audience is welcome to Google it. That's pretty much a documentary account of a thing that happened. And the moment I read about it, I was like, this is such a perfect opening scene for a book. And so there's quite a bit of that. My general rule was that if something is kind of big enough to make the news in real world, I want to find a real world equivalent for it so that no one can accuse me of being too fanciful. They say oh, that is really that's something out of a movie. I'm actually, this happened in real life on this day.
I don't think anyone would be saying that now, though. I don't think anyone would be reading anyone's spy book and thinking, this would never happen. So, Michael, how would you describe your writing journey? Because I always like to ask. And also, I always think there's a difference between your writing journey and your publishing journey. The two are not necessarily the same.
Right. Well, I've done a lot of things in my life that all amount to storytelling in some way, right? I've been a journalist. I've been I tried to be a literary novelist. I've been and am a screenwriter, and occasionally I direct a little movie when they let me. But writing spy fiction actually feels like a very weird sort of belated homecoming to me, because it is a genre and a kind of a mode where I can basically just play into all of my strengths and be weirdly personal too. For something that's like genre, the collaborators is really autobiographical. Like I've put so much of like myself and my family's history into the character of Paul Obrant, and then a little bit into into Ari Falk, and so I'm really happy to be doing this, and all I want is an ability to continue doing this. So thankfully, my publishers, Scribner in the US, Simon & Schuster UK in the UK, they were incredibly supportive, and they contracted me for a sequel well before the first book even came out, which is such a great vote of confidence, and I'm told does not happen too often these days. So at least I know there's going to be at least two, but I absolutely love this, and I want to continue. And the reviews that mean the most to me are reviews from sort of the people who have really spent their whole lives, like in that genre, like either writing or reading, and when they say that this sort of stands up to the test, I'm like, yes, that's who I'm working for. I want to write something for the people who like live and breathe spy fiction.
Did you know initially when you started writing the first book that it was going to be part of the series? And the only reason why I ask is because I remember when I first sat down with the first time I sat down with my agent before I signed, and he asked me about my book, and he asked me if it was a series. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, I just want to sign a contract. So yes, it was a series, even though I hadn't planned it.
It's the conversation that everyone in Hollywood has when they are selling a TV show, because like you've basically, in 99% of the cases, you've only worked out one season in your head, and you know how the story ends, at best. And then of course during the pitch, they're like, it's sort of a favorite question of the buyers. They're like, so what does season 4 of this look like? And you're just like, dear God, let me just get through to like the end of this sentence and get back to like selling the story I actually worked out. And, and then of course, if it's a success, you're like, oh, oops, now I have to actually do this. No, there was no conversation about this being a series until everyone started getting really enthusiastic, like internally, about the first one. But my agent, who minces no words, asked me up front when we were talking about the book, and I'll have to edit her speech a little bit. It's like, if I do this, if I sell this for you, are you going to screw off and do something else entirely like you usually do? And I'm like, no, this is the next 20 years of my life if this works. And she was like, all right, okay.
When you look back at like your screen, God, it makes it sound like it's over, and it's not over. But when you're looking at your screenwriting career and interacting with producers, and I suppose I want to say like the Hollywood system, did any of that like prepare you for publishing? Because it is a completely different beast, and also like the reactions that you're getting from readers, it's going to be different from I suppose like a film critic or audiences seeing your movie like straight away.
That's a great question. And I'm usually asked a variation of this question, like in creative terms, like, is it hard to switch from like a screenwriting to, a screenplay to a book, which is, a boring question to answer. Yeah, of course it's different format, different, but this is actually a more interesting version of the question. Like, is the industry different? And I'd say there's a healthy bit of like connection between the industries, but some maybe too much, because I feel like there's a lot of books being written out there and being published only to provide the so-called underlying intellectual property for an eventual adaptation. And like you basically, it's like story laundering. You launder the story by making it into a book, and it doesn't matter if it works as a book, because then you can go off and pitch it as a TV series or a film by saying, like, hey, it was a book first, because you don't have to worry about this being an original story. And for me, a book always needs to want to be a book first and foremost. Like, if this thing came to me as a screenplay, I would have written a screenplay, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's something about a book that, there's something about asking for like 8 hours of someone's time as opposed to 2, that's like places a big responsibility on you to just to move things along and to, and just not be boring, basically.
Yeah.
And there's I come from like literary fiction, so it's not that I'm saying every book has to be rip roaring action tale, but still there's a real responsibility when you ask for so much of people's time to read it, and in terms of the industry, well, everyone predicted that like the books would die off, and they're doing really well. Like the generally the book sales are great. And physical books are still alive. It's interesting. I'm looking at my sales, and the physical book sales are almost 1-to-1 with ebooks. So it's almost like they found a way to like coexist in a way that doesn't really hurt either side of the equation.
Yeah, it's kind of sorry, go on.
No. That's I was just saying that, like, so it's doing really well, but it's also it's very different too. Like, the book buying, for example, demographically, it's very, very female driven.
With your book, with the Spy Friend,
the physical book buying is over the last sort of 10 years or so. It's skewed more and more female, and I think one of the like sort of industry things that I've heard about the collaborators is, you're like, it's very smart of you to include like a main female character, because this is who buys books these days. And honestly, I was like, I didn't like, this wasn't strategic, I just wanted to do this, but I like Maya, and she's like a co-lead character, and in the second book there's also another sort of female lead, but it never occurred to me that like, I'm writing this so that they can, sell it to an audience. So, yeah.
That's crazy, because even when I think about my own books, because I'm thinking that you kind of like, you write in your own bubble, you've created this world for yourself and you coexist in that bubble. And you're not really, well, I like to think so, you're not really thinking about, okay, how is this going to respond with people of this demographic, and when it drawing this audience. And then when you fast forward 2 years later, when you're sitting with your marketing team and your publicity team, and they're saying to you, no, that was a very good strategy you did, and you're thinking, I didn't have a strategy, I was just writing a story.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you're lucky in that case, because if you're in tune with what people want, that's great. But you don't have to be. It's some books wait for their own audience or create their own audience. But that's great if that happens.
Yeah,
I think the bad thing is to think about it before you even start thinking about the story. That's when you sort of corrupt your own thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like writing to trends, isn't it? When people's like, this is the current trend, so this is what you need to do. Whereas
again, no judgment. The only problem is it takes 2 years to write and publish a book. So by the time it comes out, I guarantee you're going to be late to whatever trend you're trying to catch up to.
I think that's exactly the point. When you was talking about ebooks and print, and it's kind of been like 1-to-1, in my head I was thinking about vinyl. They always said vinyl's dead, like it's never making a comeback, because you got CDs and then you had streaming, and now they're saying no, vinyl it's not even slowly, it is making a comeback. More and more vinyl is being bought by people. So same with print.
I have a 14-year-old kid. She has more vinyl I ever did, than ever did, because I like at that age when you didn't have enough money to buy everything on vinyl, so you just bought like cassettes. I just had
cassette tapes,
and some of them were pirated. But the thing about her is it's a physical artifact. She barely ever listens to stuff on vinyl. She just kind of likes having it, and I think that's because the art is beautiful and there's foldouts, and the vinyl itself, like the technology has moved somewhere where they can make all these like crazy like multicolored sort of art object type of vinyl records. So it's just become something you can hold or display, and somehow it works. It's really funny. We want something physical. We don't want
to miss. No, I do. I think that's actually what I do miss about, even though I probably stream more. Well, I stream more. I can't tell you the last time I bought. Do they even sell CDs anymore? But I can't remember the last time I bought a CD.
I've lost the plot on this, because after I heard that cassettes are back,
are they?
As like a hipster thing, that kind of killed me, because vinyl I understand, but cassettes were always like a cheap compromise. Like the art is tiny, the sound quality is iffy, they're annoying. It's like, really, we're gonna fetishize cassettes now? Can't we just forget that this existed?
See, the vinyl I understand, the cassettes I do not understand, because it's exactly what you said. I remember, like being younger, and you'd want the album, but the cassette is the cheap alternative. Maybe if you're like buying a present for a friend.
Right.
And the vinyl was amazing. It always was amazing, because when you got the fold outs, and then sometimes they'd have the lyrics inside, and you can read a little story about your artist, and then that's all disappeared. But a cassette was just hassle, especially when the ribbon came out or the tape came out. You got to find a pen. You could tell Michael and I are Gen X.
Yes. But I gotta say, the one thing cassettes were great for was making mixtapes.
Oh, the best mixtape I got, my brother, a guy made it for me. He made me a mixtape, and my brother took it and taped over it, and I could have killed him.
Oh no!
I was like, what? Yeah, I know, that was pain.
Right. There you go.
That was painful. So, Michael, look, going back about the collaborators, it's a question I ask now, because someone asked me, and I thought, that's a good question. I'm going to steal it. Was there a challenge in writing that book? Or any challenges?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is really just pulling off the genre of it all, like pulling off the structure that would be surprising for people who have really, really immersed themselves in this kind of book. Like, so just making sure the twist works, and then making sure it doesn't invalidate anything in terms of character, because there's a lot of twists for the twist's sake out there, and I wanted something that makes you look back at the entire book, and I'm trying to be vague so as not to spoil what it is.
You can be vague,
but that was to make sure that this construction holds. Like one of my biggest inspirations is a novel by John le Carré that not many people actually I think would name as their favorite. It's called A Small Town in Germany. And it's not one of his big smiley books, but there's a beautiful and very sort of humanist twist at the end of that book that just kind of makes you realize what it is that you've been reading this whole time. And it's because a lot of the times in the genre it's like, oh, that guy is the mole, and that's the twist. But that one, specifically in A Small Town in Germany, it just does something that like recasts the entire book in terms of like you start understanding somebody's motivation. Like, that's the real twist, is that it's not that you understand now what's been done, you understand why it's been done. And I really took that as like my kind of pole star in writing the collaborators. I wanted the sort of this shock of recognition, not of somebody's actions, but of somebody's motives. And so that was pulling that off was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, because I always like to think that when I'm writing that I'm writing in a sense, not only just to tell the story, but also I'm trying to understand, because then it just comes back to me being, well, I'll say being a former criminal lawyer. I'm always trying to work out like what motivates people, what has brought someone to that point. So even when I'm writing my own books, I think that's always like the underlying motivation. It's like, what has got this person here? What has pushed you? And that doesn't matter whether it's the protagonist or the antagonist. What has got you to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. What is your favorite of your own books? Because I want to read one now.
Oh my God. What's my favorite?
Let's plug your book.
I feel it's like I've got to pick my favorite child. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pick the first one. I'm going to pick The Jigsaw Man, because I think that's the book that I didn't expect anything to happen with it. Like I wrote it and I was like, whatever happens, like happens. I'm not, I'm not fixated on the outcome. But I think the reason why it's my favorite is because like my main character in it, Henley, who's a detective, I saw her in my head like probably like 2 to 3 years before I even started writing the book. And I just needed somewhere to put her. Like I didn't have the story. And then when the story came to me, I'm like, oh, this is the perfect place for her. Like I found her. And yes, I think that is going to be my favorite. And also it brought in one of the serial killers in there, Peter Olivier. I don't know why people love him so much, but everyone loves him. And because he started off in my head as just a minor, I always called him, he was just a plot device. He was just something to keep the story moving. But then he ended up being something bigger, and everyone's always asking when he's going to come back. So yeah, we'll go for Jigsaw Man.
Yeah, absolutely, we'll do. So you wrote it on spec, right? Like you wrote it.
No, I was doing a creative writing masters, and we had to write the novel in order to complete the course. So in my head, I was just thinking, look, I just need to finish this so I can pass the course, and I'm just going to get on with my life. I got to go to court. I have a job. This is just getting it done. And then it just turned into something bigger. And I think that's probably like the beauty of probably writing your first book. Like there's no real, constraints on you. There's a little bit of freedom as opposed to when you're now writing under contract and someone's asking for the book to be delivered.
There's a huge difference. Yes, this second book that I just finished was the first time I wrote on deadline, when like the book is already announced and it's like on the publisher's schedule. It is remarkably like hard.
It's weird.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It has to be done by a certain day. And that is I'm pretty excited about how it came out, but I did not enjoy the experience.
No,
so, having a hard deadline.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine, she messaged me one day and she's like, Nadine, I've just gone on Amazon and the book that I still haven't finished writing yet is now available for sale on Amazon by her publisher. And she's like, I'm literally looking at it now. I'm like, she hasn't even finished the first draft, but then it's already up. And that's a weird thing as well, because it's a different pressure, because it's not only your editor saying deliver it by the 1st of July. Now it's like there's the world's expectations for it to be available by the 1st.
These are champagne problems, I think, but yes.
They are actually, aren't they? They are definitely first world problems. But Michael, when did you, because I always like to ask, when did you realize not that you could write, but that you could tell a story? Because again, there's a big difference, isn't there? Because a lot of people can write.
Right. Yeah. Right. I'm going to give a really boring answer. Like, I always wanted to be a writer. I think I wrote my first like quote unquote novel when I was like 8, and it was some like weird Western thing, I think, but written by like an 8-year-old in the Soviet Union. I would love to reread it at some point. Actually, if it's somewhere in my like childhood papers, I don't know. But I always wanted to write. It's just that the forms that it took were different. But And I'm not one. I don't think I'm one of those people who do it to like, to gain kind of like recognition or love from their peers, because it's like I always wanted to be slightly anonymous. I'm vain. We all are. I want my name to be known, but like my experience that I had in Russia with having like my face known is not something I enjoyed, to be honest, because I had this weird 3-year period when like I went to Moscow and was the editor-in-chief of GQ in Russia. And that came with like a weird B-list celebrity status, as I found out.
Does it really?
In the well, yeah, it's like, in the US you have, Anna Wintour and I don't know, Graydon Carter, and then everyone else is just an editor doing their job. And in Russia, as I found out after coming there, like every editor is Anna Wintour. It's like being the editor of a Western magazine is a public-facing job with like people writing about what they saw you on the street dressed in. Like that. That is something I'm glad I had that experience, because now I know for sure that I don't enjoy it.
That's weird though, isn't it? Because say like you're doing a profile on an actor, not only is it the profile on the actor, in a sense it's also on you, and really you're just supposed to be in the background.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, hiring woman. Are you ready to own your own money and your own future? On the Hiring Woman podcast, we dive into real money moves, bold success stories, and the game plan for financial freedom. Hit follow and let's build wealth on our own terms.
She wakes up with purpose, stacks on her mind, grinding all day, hustle refined, shattering ceilings, she's fierce and untamed. Boss is her title, wealth is her game, power in heels or sneakers on deck. Respect comes easy when you earn that check. From boardroom to businesses, she's got finesse. This woman right here.
Well, that's the problem with these jobs, is that like most of what you do is just I wanted to be an actual editor, like what you're describing. Like I wanted to assign and edit stories, and it took me a while to figure out that actually the gist of the job is to placate advertisers, which means you just have to go to all these like commercial events, so like any given week you'll have like 5 boutique openings, and you just have to show up there and be photographed, and that's kind of your job. That's like 80% of your job is to be photographed standing next to somebody's marketing rep. And it had fun moments. Like I remember back then it was still possible in 2013. I think we, the Russian GQ was like sponsoring the Russian premiere of Skyfall. Yeah, so the cast came, and one of the minor royals was there. Just like, you can like rent a royal, I think, for your movie. Right, and there's Prince Michael of Kent. I don't know why.
That really is renting a royal.
Right. So, sorry, but like it was. Sorry if I'm saying something controversial.
It's fun. I just think it's funny.
Okay. So it was like, oh wow, this is really glamorous and cool, and we get to like attach our name to like a Bond movie. But but for every event like this, there was like 10 like car dealership openings.
Oh God. That is so not what you would expect. In my head, when you're saying to me you're the editor of GQ Russia, I'm thinking, okay, you're sitting there in your office with your red pen.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. But no, well, it's all gone. There's no more Russian GQ. Condé Nast has left the country. Well, yeah, maybe they'll come back at some point, when Russia stops doing what it's doing. But yeah.
It kind of ties in though, when I speak to a lot of writers on this podcast, and there are some who, when they first set out to write a book, all they're thinking about is writing the book, and then all they're thinking about after that is it will be on the bookshelf somewhere, and then they'll just move on to the next book. But then they get the reality check of, that now you need to be outside. You now need to be doing events. You need to do panels. You now need to be visible as not just the writer, now the author. And for some people, that's a big adjustment to make.
It's weird, right? Because it's not the same set of skills. And
no,
in fact, one could argue it's two diametrically opposed sets of skills. No one becomes a writer, because they enjoy other people's company.
It's like when I call them the baby lawyers, when I'm teaching the baby lawyers and I'm teaching them advocacy, so, communication skills and doing your speeches and stuff, I always say to them, you need to be prepared for the point that one of your family members are going to ask you to do the wedding speech or do the funeral eulogy or do the baptism. There'll be some kind of public speaking role they want you to do. But the two are completely different, because you doing a closing speech to a jury, it's not going to be any more than 12 people. Whereas you standing before an audience, a large audience, it's two completely different things. And it can be hard for people to understand that, which is, goes back to, being a writer in your room at your desk, and being an author, being on the stage.
Yeah, well, again, it's a good problem to have if you have this to stand on. But yeah, this is not, it's strange that that's part of the deal. Yeah,
it is. How did you ever manage rejection? I'd say in both industries, in both, I suppose, as a screenwriter and now. Not now as a novelist. You've always been a novelist, but
not well, Nadine. Well, the thing about movies is that, and especially the movie and TV business, is that the rejection takes many forms, and one of the forms it takes is when somebody buys your story and does nothing with it. And this is something that makes me feel very fondly about books, because the thing is, when you write a book and you're done with it, it's done. It exists. Yeah. Even in the off chance scenario where no one buys it, you can just, go nuts and self-publish, or hit share link on the Google Doc that you've been writing it on, and it still exists. It just exists in a slightly different form. Whereas a screenplay, of course, is just a blueprint for something else that will take another 10 steps to actually become reality. And so to me, the hardest part is having something sold, which happened multiple times to me, and seems to be a very regular, unremarkable Hollywood experience, when you sell something and everyone acts very excited about it. You get paid, which is great. And then just a year goes by and nothing happens. And then everyone slowly loses their enthusiasm for it. And then 3 years later, no one says your project is dead. No one ever calls you to say, we are officially not pursuing this any longer. This never happens. It just kind of peters out.
Yeah.
It fades, and you're supposed to understand by outside context clues that they're no longer interested in it. And that is my least favorite kind of rejection. Just don't buy it, if you don't want to do anything about it. And that is a very American thing, because there's too much money in this town. They can afford to buy things and not pursue them. In Europe, if you sell a script, there's an 80% chance that it's going to get made, because there's not enough money in the industry to buy up scripts they have no intention of producing.
Yeah.
And so sorry for the long answer, but that is the one type of rejection I absolutely cannot stand, is this slow hiss of air coming out of a project.
But I think that's probably why I'm very cynical. It might be just the lawyer in me. I'm very cynical about the enthusiasm that you could get from production companies, because it's like when you explain book options to people, and you say, yeah, it's been optioned, but it doesn't mean anything's going to happen with it. it's like, someone's just, I'm giving you some money just so I can hold it. I could pull it in my pocket
for a year.
few years. Yeah, for a year or two, or even 3. Or they might extend it. But then it's like you say, it's probably the worst case of ghosting, because there is nothing, no communication. It's just, you said it just fades out until you just think, okay, well, that's it. It's over.
Right, but they don't let you know. Yeah,
they don't let you know.
It is like ghosting. You can keep like living a fantasy in which it's still an
They'll come back.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's not great, and especially since it's so disingenuous, right? It's like oh my God, I love you, Brooke. And it's like what? Yeah. Right.
I think that's what makes me so cynical. And they're like, I love your book. I think you're amazing. You're like, And who else you said? And how many other people have you said that to today? I am not the only one.
Yep. Not to draw obvious parallels, but yeah.
Listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. When we were talking earlier about basically book writing and people writing books, but with the intention of it being made into a TV series or a film. And I said this to someone probably a couple of months ago on this podcast. There was like probably three books in a row that I'd read. And each book I'd felt like it hadn't been written for like me. And I'm talking about in terms of the reader. It felt like it was a blueprint to be made into a TV series or a film. And it just made me feel differently because it felt like it was missing something.
You know how like sometimes you go to a, like a local restaurant or like a fast food joint, like a burger joint. And it's just, and it's like just good, made with care and, delicious and things like that. And sometimes you go to a fast food joint and it is roughly the same. Everything's fine, but you just feel that this is like a showcase that they've made for venture capitalists to come in and make it into a franchise.
Yeah.
Right. That is the model, but like they will never be happy with just one burger stand. Like they want some hedge fund to come in and to put them into like every airport in the world. And so that is, unfortunately, that is a feeling you get from some books when it was like, oh yeah, okay, you're creating a character that you want to be like the new Jack Reacher or something. Like you want this guy or this woman to be, like you're just introducing somebody you want to do 28 novels about. Yeah, and again, I don't want to disparage people who do that. Like, why not if there's an audience for it? But there is like sometimes you get like a whiff of cynicism about it, and so definitely a good thing to avoid that in your own writing, because you really have to be like excited by what you're writing in the moment you're writing it, because otherwise it becomes a job like any other. I might as well be like an insurance salesman,
You do need to be excited about your writing, because even now I'm very much a planner. So I've been working on something, but I knew I had to rework the plan. So I've been working on the plan before we started recording. And at one point I sat back and I was like, what am I doing? But then because I was still excited about the story and the characters, and I know what's going to be coming next, it keeps me motivated to keep going. And you need that.
Do you plan everything out?
I do. I'm trying to find the right way to say it. Well, I do plan. I plan. I don't plan out every single detail. I call it like a safety net. So I know how it ends, but I'm very much open to things changing once I start writing, because things do. I always say like a subplot just comes out of nowhere because you get into what you get into a flow of writing. But I have to have a plan. I couldn't just start writing and
hope
for the best.
No.
Yeah,
no,
because
because with the collaborators, I knew how it was going to end because that sort of was justified the whole book. But I did leave some spaces to how to get there where I didn't know how we're going to get to that point, until I got to that point in the book, and it worked out really well. So I wanted to recapture the same structure in the second book, and it just didn't work at all. I hit the end of the pre-planned section, and I thought this sort of momentum is going to carry me over to the ending, and it just didn't. So I spent a month staring at a wall, and then I had to admit to myself, all right, this time I have to go back and I have to actually just do a scene by scene until we get to the end, and I'm not going to be able to move forward until I know exactly what happens. So I guess it's just kind of, it varies on the book, and
I think that's a hard moment for, I think, maybe a lot of writers, not even necessarily a new writer, to look at their work and acknowledge, say to themselves, you know what, this isn't working, and to go back and rework it.
That's something I just experienced 3 months ago with this one, because it's I really had to go away for a month, even, because I didn't want my family to see me tearing my hair out about this, and so I was all right, I am looping back to page 1, and I'm rewriting everything I've with the new intention.
That's exactly what I've done with this one that I'm working on. I literally had to go back, and it's I've been working on it on and off because I've had my other books in my series to write. So going back into it, and I'm like, this isn't working. I thought, no, I have to go back literally to page 1, to the minute we meet the main character, and we work it, and hopefully it will work out.
Well,
hopefully.
Look, it's better to do it to yourself than to hear it from the editor, isn't it?
That is very true. I'd rather put myself through it, and then know when I do finally deliver the manuscript, I know that I've done everything I could have done, and then hopefully, my editor's then doing her editing job,
right?
As opposed to saying,
does your editor edit heavily?
I think what I found is that it's probably less editing with each book. So in the beginning, I remember when I first wrote the Jigsaw Man and I got my editing notes, I was like, oh, there are pages and pages and pages of editing notes. But when I delivered the fourth one, I was like, oh, I think there's only 3 pages. So it's more, you still edit. Well, you still ask the question.
You earned it then. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I've learned.
Yeah.
Even though
my sort of weird situation is that my agent does quite a bit of what essentially amounts to editing. She's not going to take the book out unless she loves it. And so with the first book, so I was on draft 3 before it went out to publishers, because sort of the agent does what editors sometimes do. And the edit itself was pretty light, but very I was very happy to have it, because it really you do need a fresh pair of eyes, and and my editor writes his own spy novels, which helps. So he's super sort of steeped in the genre. So I was really happy to get some feedback.
You definitely need a second pair of eyes on your work, because I've got this one scene in my 4th book in my series, which is just come back to me to do my next set of edits, and I'm wedded to this one scene, and every time my editor says we don't need it, I keep putting it back, and this is the 3rd time she's like, we don't need this. So I'm like, okay, all right, I've given up, but I tried. I tried to keep it. But I'm like, she knows best. She does know best, and I trust her. So that's what I'm going to do. Right, Michael, before I go on to your last set of questions, we've been talking about the collaborators. Firstly, do you want to tell the listeners of the conversation about the collaborators? I'm trying to, I'm forcing you to do your elevator pitch, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
I hope that your audience has at least a cursory interest in it, because otherwise we are 47 minutes into a recording and we didn't
will.
So my apologies to whoever, without knowing what the book is. Well, yeah. Well, it's the collaborators were really born out of sort of frustration with the two kinds of spy novel that exist in the world. One is an incredibly like cerebral procedural that's considered realistic, and the other is like completely fanciful, what we call like spy-fi, right, where everything blows up. And I always felt that there's a third way, and there's sort of not many people working in that space where something is realistic and grounded and based in research and actual like underlying geopolitics, but at the same time has room for a couple of shootouts and in a car chase, because things like that do happen in real life. And just like you mentioned with your character, the detective, I had the character of Ari Falk in my head for a little bit before figuring out what to do with him, because I have friends in the intelligence and national security community. Not all of them like clandestine. Some of them are just like NatSec, people. But the thing is, they're not different from anyone else. They're just, and most of them are in like their 30s, and they have favorite movies and books and music, and they don't exist in some sort of parallel clandestine world where nothing happens but intrigue and subterfuge. Like they go home and they like
forget the milk.
They're people who are like, they're millennials who were brought up on Harry Potter. Like they're not mysterious. And I really wanted to reflect that, so I wanted a character who would basically just be a relatable human being with no special abilities and no like superpowers, and no, who can't overpower like 5 skilled opponents in a shootout, but just has some basic training and is moderately smart and witty and just all around reliable, somebody I can see having gone to school with. And that is sort of where Ari Falk was really born. And then I was waiting for the correct plot to find him. But if I needed to do an elevator pitch for the book,
I'm sorry.
Yes, no, no. That's fine. It's a novel about a sort of a disaffected millennial CIA officer who's on the verge of quitting when his star asset is killed, and he realizes that there's just basically nothing he's done has brought any good to the world. And at the same time, we have the second protagonist, this sort of spoiled and troubled kind of Beverly Hills heiress, Maya Chou, whose father mysteriously disappears and is presumed sort of dead by suicide. And she sort of deals with her stress by going off and trying to figure out what actually happens to him. And they don't know yet, but the CIA officer and the heiress are kind of on a collision course, and they realize about halfway through the book that their missions are one and the same, and they're looking for the same person. And I'm not going to spoil what's rest, but it leads us to an old and fact-based sort of conspiracy about something that happened in the 90s at the end of the Cold War. Okay, that's the pitch.
That's a good pitch. Okay, before I go into your last set of questions, if you could spend an afternoon with any of your characters in the collaborators, who would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Alan Keegan. I really like Alan Keegan. He is, for those who don't know, he is an OSINT sort of a guru. OSINT is open source intelligence, and there are wonderful sites and portals like Bellingcat who do this sort of thing, where basically it's almost like amateur sleuthing, right? It's kind of the online hive mind used to geolocate war crimes, or find where or we're basically sifting through like CCTV recordings to figure out like the ultimate truth of what happened in various cases. So, and the creator of Bellingcat, his name is his real name is Elliot Higgins. So Alan Keegan is clearly like a bit of a hat tip to him, and I just I really like Alan, and every time he pops up in the book, I think like, oh, this is the guy I would like to hang out with. And also every time he talks about the world, like if Alan Keegan says something in the book, you can be pretty sure that's like me talking. Like that, like, his worldview is very much my worldview, as opposed to other characters who are not exactly like me. Like what he says is usually like, oh yeah, that's
that's Michael.
That's just me. Yeah, he also has my music taste, as opposed to Ari, who listens to like Weezer. So Alan Keegan, he's British, and he listens to a lot of like British indie music of the sort of turn of the century. He's like a Black Box Recorder fan, and and Ladytron and things like that. And this is all like straight up my music taste. So like I've just given him like every British indie artist I admire.
Okay. Right. So last set of questions. Michael, are you an introvert or extrovert, or a hybrid of the two?
I'm a highly functioning introvert who can pretend to be an extrovert for the time needed, and then needs to go lie down. So yeah, I can be I can be very sociable, like I am now, and then I'll need to go and like do a New York Times crossword puzzle, which I will the moment we're off the call. So so honestly, just introvert, but I hide it well.
Yeah.
Or not very well.
That's a lot of writers on here. Okay, so what? Right. Now I need to caveat it now with saying good or bad. So what challenge, good or bad? So what challenge or experience in your life shaped you the most?
I would say my family moving from Latvia to the US in 1992. I was 16. I wasn't sure what the future held. I didn't know if I would ever learn English to such an extent that I would be able to write in it, because my identity at that point at 16 was already very much like I'm a writer.
Yeah.
So it was incredibly fraught. Like I didn't know if I was going to find a way to do what I do. And I was looking back, I was very lucky that I was 16 and not 20. Because there's something about that age that allowed me to keep my native Russian, yet be fluent enough in English to write books in it. Whereas my sister was 11 at the time, and she speaks English without an accent. But I don't think she can write in Russian. Or I know people who came at like 18 or 19, and like their English is still like it's just it's great, but it's still like a foreigner's English, And so there's something about moving at 16 that made me be able to like be fully bilingual, and that is literally just the fact that shaped my entire life from there on out. And thank you to my parents for doing that when they did it.
Yeah. God, I was thinking what I was like when I was 16, because I would have been 1993. I was 16, and it's such a funny age because you still haven't quite worked out who you are, but you kind of know what you want to be, and you're just trying to work out how you're going to get there. And it's so easy to just feel like, this is where I am now. I'm just going to fully immerse myself in this community, this way of life, this friendship, in order to fit in and forget everything. Yeah, it's a funny age.
For sure. My daughter is heading there. She's 14 now, so strapping in and
good luck. Okay, so if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh my God, stop screwing around and write a book.
That's a good one. Okay, so what is your non-writing tip for writers? I always say you could tell them to go for a walk, drink water.
Non-writing tip. I'm not sure I have any. You mean just like how to conduct yourself in like
yeah, it could be anything.
Oh, well, I feel like if you're passionate about something that's not your job and you're not sure how to fit it into your life, to me the only thing that helped was doing it first thing in the morning. Like if you feel like there's something that you want to do, but you feel like I'm never going to get to do it, so I'm not going to pursue it. Try rolling out of bed and doing it for an hour, and then just like literally just be gross, no shower, no like, just do it, and then have like breakfast and let your day begin. Like wake up at 6 a.m., try to do it for an hour, and then go on with your day. Like you will, you in the grand scheme of things, like, and of course this is for people who don't have to deal with like large families or kids, and there's all sorts of complications. But if you can afford to do something like that, I would say, like, if you feel like, oh, there's no time in my day to do this thing I'm passionate about, like, just try doing it first thing in the morning. And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You can revisit it later in the evening and look at it and go like, oh my god, what was I thinking? But it doesn't matter, it'll be done. And it's the only way to find out, because you're one thing that I learned about myself when I had all these like day jobs is like, you're not going to come back from work tired and do the thing you're passionate about. It's hard, and you're not going to do your best job. So just try to start your day with it, and then go on with the rest of the day. That's like the only tip I have for anyone, I think.
No, I think it's a good tip. I mean, it's basically how I feel about working out. I know I'm not going to do it at the end of the day. So I will get up like at 5:45, do what I need to do. And then whether I do it badly, or whether I just do it slowly, at least I know it's done. And then I can get on with my day. And I always say, like I said it repeatedly on this podcast, sometimes it's about stealing time. When you want to work on that book or do that painting, you just have to steal the time. And the morning is the best time to steal before the rest of your day gets started. Okay. So finally, Michael, where can listeners of the conversation find you online? Because they need to find you.
Oh, all right. Well, I have an actual website, like it's 2004 or something. It's michaelidov.com with a dash. So it's michael-idov.com, because some weirdo is like squatting on the normal Michael Idov.
Oh, so annoying.
So I have to do the dash. But so it's and it has links to my, dwindling social media presence. I'm also Michael Idov without the dash on Instagram, and you can always like DM me there. I think that's the easiest way to get in touch with me, is just find me on Instagram. It's Michael Idov, and DM me. I usually check the messages there. And I think that's the way to get in touch with me.
The most important thing is that you can be found, and that just leads me to say, Michael Idov, thank you very much for being part of the conversation.
Thank you so much, Nadine.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.